everyone! Today, for this Book Review Wednesday, since I unfortunately was unable to take my fan request because the library did not have the book, so I have to wait until it gets shipped out and sent to me, and they will email me once that happens, but I'll be sure to update everybody in regards to that. So since there have been really no other fan requests, I'm going to start doing books that I've decided to either purchase or rent from the library. But without further ado, let me discuss this one. And also I want to briefly kind of address the series of books that is part of the book that I'm going to be addressing. So I will do that, but let me just start by saying that this book is called The Final Eclipse by Lynn Ewing. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. And it is part of the Final Daughters of the Moon series. Now this series encompasses a span of 12 books. Each focusing on a girl or girls technically who have supernatural type powers. One I think is invisibility, one I think is reading minds, one's premonitions, and then one's time travel too. So there's a lot of things though that end up resulting in them having their powers. I kind of don't want to give that away, but it really is based within Greek mythology, and in particular with the goddess Selene. So they're basically people who were born with these powers as a result of this goddess Selene. So that's, I think, how I can explain it in a nutshell without really giving anything so much away. But throughout the series, you have the girls bonding, and you also have other characters that some books focus on. And basically, their sort of ultimate goal is to defeat this evil force called the Atrox, which is really basically the main villain of the whole series. Basically that's the premise of the plot throughout the majority of the books, although again it's almost like it's a continuation. It's like these episodes that come up, they face the adversary, but maybe they don't defeat it for good necessarily. But in the last one, that conclusion finally comes and is sort of wrapped up in a nice big bow for everybody. Now, although the writing is fairly simplistic, I think it's definitely good for teenagers in particular. This is a very big it has a lot of things that I think would appeal to teenagers, and it doesn't have a hugely complex language, and it's really straightforward, I think, for the most part, but it has these traits, I think, that I think a lot of girls could associate with, because the girls in the books kind of go through the difficulty and challenges of having powers and being different and not being able to be fully understood by others. And again, I think that's something that's very identifiable for teenagers. I think the books, for the majority of the time, they are a fun ride, and they're not necessarily as long. So I think in particular, teenagers don't like it when there's a huge thickness to the amount they have to read, because again, the books are relatively the same length. They're about this much. They're not super duper long. And I just think that they're overall interesting because we don't really see, in particular, I think a lot of girl books that focus in on them having powers or them having this supernaturalness to them. And again, I would say also that these books again don't delve into the Twilight syndrome of having very uninteresting characters or having characters that are unlikable. I think overall these characters in particular represent a certain likability to them, and you can sort of tell through as you go through the series how they sort of bond and what that ultimately ends up resulting in. And there's I think a lot of different emotions, and I think there's just a lot that that can be identifiable for teens, maybe even preteens to maybe a certain extent. And I think it's just a series that's, I think, worth recommendation. And again, I'm not saying that these are complete masterpieces. Again, they are sort of designed to be the standard teenage kinds of books. But I think they do a good job of just being concise to a story and making it into this lengthy series that focuses in on these people and focuses in on this kind of scenario that they're placed in. But I think though that's ultimately all I can say. So again, I'm technically kind of reviewing the series here without really going into much of the book, but let me sort of summarize it briefly without really giving anything away. There is, I think, a little bit more of a focus on certain girls that were in the other books than others. Maybe to some people's liking or disliking. So I think this probably does this kind of focus might hinder the enjoyment for people if they think that there should have been more of an emphasis on some of the other girls within the series. But regardless, I still think it is a good end to what ultimately the series was trying to basically do. And it kind of does go full circle because the girl that gets focused on in the first book is really the girl that gets focused on in the last book. So I guess it makes sense from the author's standpoint why she would do this. But maybe some people might dislike that and feel that there should have been a little bit more focus on all of them. But regardless, there is, I think, different things and that go on throughout the series that can be fairly either dramatic or adventurous, I guess you could say, where there's a lot of different things that end up happening and different sort of obstacles that they have to overcome. And this one just kind of brings it all in a full circle. But again, I think that only criticism that I have is again, it's not really focusing on all of them. It's really focusing in on the first girl that kind of starts off the series. And I think it's always told within third person. I don't think it's ever told within any of the girls' perspectives. So again, that might be either a detriment to somebody's enjoyment, or it might be something that they think is good. For me personally, I don't think it matters all that much. And basically, it, I think, treats itself in a very straightforward way. But ultimately, it's really just about their sort of destiny, which is to defeat this sort of evil force, the Atrox. So that's ultimately, though, all I think I can really say about all of these books, in particular the last one, The Final Eclipse, which basically, again, you can sort of tell by the fact that it's Greek mythology and that Selene's associated with the moon, that this is sort of supposed to be like, you know, girls save the world woohoo book series. So if you enjoy that, this will definitely appeal to you. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say without really giving anything away. And in case you want to know all of the girls within the series, basically it includes Vanessa, Serena, Jamina, Caddy, and Tiana. So if you would like to know more, then I would suggest checking out the books. I saw all of the books actually within my local library, so I'm sure you could probably find them in your local library too. The setting is usually Los Angeles, but for the most part, I really feel like I would be giving too much information away, but for the most part, I think they're definitely interesting books worth checking out. If you're not, maybe if your reading level is not as maybe high compared to other books that are probably a little bit more in depth. These don't really go so much in depth because they're just designed to be sort of standard. But at the same time, I think it's still a good standard. However, I think that's really all I can discuss. But if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But until next time, everybody,